Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Giolito. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Giolito. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very, very well today. It's the start of September, a new month. Pennant Chase is on. And it's also a big day for us terminally online baseball nerds. Why? Because the Baseball Savant front page has a fresh new look. Mike Petriello kind of teased this when he came on this pod with us a few weeks ago. And now it's here, and it is beautiful.
Yes, it is beautiful. There were some surprises. There were some things that I wanted that are in there. And it's really just like, I keep saying it and it keeps coming true. Like I said it to Petriello, was like, with Baseball Savant, there's a stat that you want, or there's a different feature in Baseball Savant that you want, and then 2 months later they deliver, and it's showing.
Not even,
it's
yeah.
Like,
not even.
I didn't even ask. I didn't even ask publicly for a sweet spot percentage percentile rank, but we got it. We got it.
I actually do want to break down the positives of, having this now, of these, of the new Savant front pages. First of all, this is one of the biggest things, but non-qualified players have pages now. Previously, when there was a non-qualifier, that if you look at the Savant page, it kind of just showed like their sprint speed, their outs above average, like very basic stuff that you don't have to qualify for. Now you get to see everything, and like they will tell you if they're unqualified, and they won't give you an actual percentile, but they will show you where they rank compared to average, which is awesome. That's a huge thing. I think a lot of people aren't going to realize how useful it's going to be for a lot of players. You don't have to wait for a guy to be good to see how good they are. You can really see it up front. Another thing that I think is really good is every circle has the actual value next to it. So if you want to look at the guy's barrel percent, and it's like, hey, he's 89th percentile, he's got a 13.8%. It adds a lot of context. It's great. And then there was also, they added sweet spot percentages. I think they also just like added more context to these, which makes just Savant page screenshots a lot less misleading, which, I think they were in the past. But overall, this is one of the best additions or changes, whatever you want to put it, that they've made to the website, probably in the time that it's been of public use.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like they also added, as you mentioned, they added more context to things, especially with like the fielding stuff. They added fielding run value. It's not just outs above average now. It's fielding run value. It's arm run value, range run value, showing those specifics to where you don't have to like not that it was that inconvenient, but you don't even have to go to you don't even have to click off the batting section and go to the fielding section. You can just see it all in one dashboard, which is like, it's really cool for people like us, for sure.
Yeah, also like they added, all of the catcher stuff that they've added in the last year with blocking and framing and pop time and catching above average. I believe it's like it's caught stealings above average. That's what it is. But yeah, they've added a lot of catching things. And then also all the run values. There's batting run value, base running run value, and then fielding run value that all show at the top of the page. And it's good overall. And also it's like, not only do you see that, but you see the things that go into it below. So it's like, okay, base running run value, what's that? Okay, here's sprint speed right below. And then what fielding, what's that? Here's range, here's arm value, here's arm strength.
Yeah, and then with pitchers, you see what where their fastball run value ranks, for their breaking ball run value, off speed run value, where all that goes. So you can see kind of the archetype of a pitcher where we're like, Lance Lynn, he's, or at least Lance Lynn in his prime, like, 2 years ago, his fastball run value is probably crazy high, but his breaking ball run value is probably very low because he's, he relies pretty much exclusively on four seamers, cutters, and sinkers. Whereas someone like Lance McCullers in his prime, who throws a lot of breaking stuff, that would be expressed too on the percentiles.
Yeah, no, this is it's a really excellent day for the baseball world, for the nerds like us. Because I think like this alone, this doesn't seem like a major change because a lot of it is the same. It's still, we're still looking at, expected batting average percentiles and expected slugging and all of that, but it adds a lot more context and it's going to make people a lot smarter.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very exciting. And by the way, if you are watching the YouTube edition and wondering why I'm looking off to the side, just a little quick tangent here. My laptop screen is like not functioning, like its audio is functioning. Everything about it is functioning except I can't see anything on the laptop. But if I connect it to a television, I can see what my laptop is seeing, but on a TV. But my laptop screen is completely blank. It's completely black. So I have to look at the television, which is off to the left a little bit. But it's a really interesting way to record a podcast, conduct research. I have to do everything on my laptop on a TV temporarily. Luckily, I don't really have a crazy amount of important things to do on the laptop except for the podcast. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. But that's why I'm looking off to the side here. If you are watching the YouTube edition of this episode, but yeah, yes. Baseball Savant added some very nice updates. And then as far as news goes, I'm sure that a couple of different Savant pages have been looked at recently to see where they're at. And those guys might be Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, and Reynaldo Lopez, who were all put on waivers by the Angels and picked up by the Guardians. Kind of, which we go into first, like the fact that the Angels put up, a virtual fire sale for, just for salary relief.
Yeah.
Or do we want to get into what the Guardians did here?
Let's start with the Guardians. We'll get into the Angels later, but Guardians and Reds both picked up, I think, all of the guys that the Angels put on waivers, minus Randall Grichuk, who cleared waivers for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Very odd that happened because I think a lot of teams could have used his left-handed abilities, or his abilities against left-handers rather. But nonetheless, that is what happened. The Guardians picked up Lucas Giolito, they picked up Matt Moore, and they picked up Reynaldo Lopez. And then the Reds picked up Hunter Renfroe, and then they also picked up Harrison Bader from the Yankees. Separate guy, but yeah, this is interesting for the Guardians. They are only 5 games out of the division race. I think of all of the teams in the waiver order, they were the first one that like it made any semblance of sense for them to pick them up, and they took advantage of that.
Right. They are the only they're the only below 500 team that it would make sense to go out and funnily enough, the Guardians are like adding salary, which is kind of funny, but good for them. Not worrying about, not compromising their team's ability to compete just because of a few $1 million. So good for them on that. But yeah, it really was like the only below 500 team that would make sense. As far as their additions, like, Giolito, he's been struggling obviously, but they needed some more depth. And I'm sure a lot of teams needed more depth, but the Guardians were first on the waiver order to be able to go out and get him. Giolito's had a 7.19 ERA and a 6.99 or 7 FIP in his last 8 starts. However, the Guardians did just designate Noah Syndergaard for assignment. I know Xavier Curry just had a rough outing too, so I'm not sure if they're in like he's in their rotation plans or they want to move him down a slot. But getting Giolito is probably an upgrade over Noah Syndergaard because Giolito seems to be having mostly like a home run problem. Syndergaard seemed to be having an everything problem. He couldn't strike guys out. He couldn't allow soft contact. It just wasn't working out for him. So it seems like Lucas Giolito was just a better option.
Yeah, for Giolito, I feel like we're going to be talking about this potential for a while because, we saw him as a Cy Young candidate in 2020 and in parts of 2021, maybe even 19 as well. But yeah, he since 2022, he's really started to have a big home run problem. And that's kind of, been the main cause of his downfall. And his strikeouts and walks aren't in good shape this year compared to previous years, but they're still, without contacts at a fine rate. I mean, he has 9.7 strikeouts per nine this year, 3.3 walks per nine. You cover up the name, and that's a pretty good rate to be at. But we've seen a lot better from Giolito. But more importantly, 1.8 home runs per nine allowed this year. Under no circumstances is that good. Under no circumstances are you really going to get much of anywhere with that, unless you're not walking anyone and not giving up any other hits, which is you're asking for a lot to go right there. But yeah, I mean, he really just needs to find a way to keep the ball in the yard. He couldn't do that in LA. He allowed 2.8 home runs per nine in his 6 starts there, which is obviously tremendously bad. But Cleveland will hopefully give him a better environment.
Yeah, you just don't know exactly how it's going to go down. Like with home run issues, sometimes you could say that it'll just naturally, even out at some point. But with how long he's been allowing home runs, I mean, I know that rate has, rocketed up a little bit this year. I'm trying to check out where his barrel rate is at since, or in his last, or since he was acquired by the Angels, I think, is when it started ballooning up, obviously, unfortunately for the Angels. But since August 1st, he has 9 barrels against on 79 batted balls, which is a rate of like probably 12% or so. That is 11%. So I don't know. I feel like it'll go down. It's not a good barrel rate, but it's not like shocking. It's not like a 20% barrel rate where it seems like it's a crazy problem. So I think it's worth the risk, considering, or there is no risk. That's the easy part, is there is no risk. So it's worth just having him in the rotation and Syndergaard out.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting if, this move is going to make a difference for them because, Bieber is out this year. McKenzie has been out this year. They haven't really had, I mean, Tanner Bybee has been solid, but other than that, I think they're still looking for a lot of pitchers to really step up for them. They haven't really had a defined ace throughout the season, I would say, other than Tanner Bybee. That's probably the closest the closest guy that you can point to throughout the season. But they weren't expecting that of him going into the season, and he even has a 370 FIP. So still not what you want your best starter to be for Cleveland. But yeah, they're gonna need Giolito to. It's very weird because he lost a tremendous amount of value over the last month. He was traded for a top 100 prospect, going from the White Sox over to the Angels. And now he's, getting acquired for quite literally nothing in terms of, other players to give up for Cleveland. But I think there's going to be a lot of expectation placed on him regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is out of Giolito's control in terms of the value. I mean, obviously, like, having a 7.19 ERA in his last 8 starts is going to diminish his value, but also, at the trade deadline, starting pitching was at a premium. Every single player on the trade market this year probably was overvalued. If we're being honest, like, it was definitely a seller's market. So that's why the Angels gave up what they gave up to get Giolito. Meanwhile, now, yeah, like, 6 bad starts later, he doesn't look as great. And I think it was like, the Angels are looking really for salary relief, trying to get under the luxury tax. I don't know if they did. I don't know if it really ends up mattering if they did. Who knows? It'll change their, compensation pick or whatever it is, if Otani leaves. But yeah, I think one of the more interesting acquisitions that maybe isn't getting talked about as much is Matt Moore going to the Guardians also. Moore, shout out to you for projecting his success in 2021
Yep.
or was it 2021?
Well, who are we talking about here?
Matt Moore.
That was 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yep.
he's been successful since 2022.
Yeah, I
It's
was a year early on the Matt
he's a
Moore
year
hype train.
early.
I was some would say I was a year early. Some would say I was like 10 years too late
Exactly.
because he was the number one prospect above Trout and Harper, uh, going into 2012.
Yeah, which is nuts. But Moore has a 2.66 ERA this year. Out of 45 qualified left-handed relievers, he ranks 10th in ERA and 12th in strikeout minus walk rate. So he's striking out guys at an above average rate, walking guys at a better than average rate as well. And also, what's notable and why this helps the Guardians is they only really had one other left-handed reliever in the bullpen with Sam Henges. So I think this might end up being more this might end up being a better acquisition than Lucas Giolito.
Yeah, no, I think Giolito might be the worst player out of those three right now.
Yeah, between
Out of the three that they got. This is a complete side note. I've never seen this before in all of my years of surfing Baseball Reference, from the 1800s to like pre-integration to the live ball era and any era of baseball. But if you go on the Cleveland like front page, like the 2023 Guardians front page, they have Cam Gallagher listed as like the team's primary catcher. You know how like every team, it's like they'll show the guys that played each position like the most games or whatever, and then
yeah.
they'll show like everyone else. He has an OPS plus of 1,
Wow.
and that's the main guy that they put in the Cleveland catching position, which doesn't even make sense because he and Bo Naylor have played the same number of games, and Naylor has 30 more plate appearances.
Yeah, and you wouldn't expect that for 2023 Guardians. You'd expect that for like 1933 Browns or
Yeah, that's why I said
1899
I don't think
Cleveland
I've ever seen
Spiders.
that before. Like, did they? How many? Did the 1889 or what was it? 1899 Cleveland Spiders have a guy
Such a
like that
player.
low in OPS plus?
I can't imagine. I think 1933 Jim Levy was still at like a 30 OPS plus.
Yeah, like he was not that bad. Wasn't good, but yeah, it wasn't 1. Yeah, no, the of anyone who appeared in a game, not as a pitcher for the 1889 Cleveland Spiders, the team that famously went 20 and 134, the lowest OPS plus. To be fair, it's probably a lot more difficult to get a 1 OPS plus in 1889 than it is now. But regardless, the lowest one that I'm seeing is 36, and it's a guy with 9 plate appearances that went 1 for 8 with a walk.
Yeah, the 1899 Cleveland Spiders weren't even that bad, I guess. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Um,
I don't like. I still don't even really. I mean, maybe like Bo Naylor has just played a bunch of games at DH and they still count him as catcher. Like, I don't know. Why do they put Cam Gallagher there? Because he has played more games than Mike Zunino, so I get that one.
yeah, right. Yeah,
No, Cam Gallagher or Bo Naylor has played 48 games at catcher, the same number. That, yeah, the Bo Naylor should be the primary catcher listed.
yeah, I think it's all computer programming.
Yeah.
Um, so who knows? Who knows with that?
Anyway,
Who knows with that?
I just appreciate this moment because I'm never gonna see something like this again.
Yeah, soak it in. It's happening. It's like the super blue moon. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you got to soak this one in. Um, yeah, so the Guardians get those three players. The Reds get Hunter Renfroe and Harrison Bader. What were your thoughts on these additions?
Poor Hunter Renfroe, first of all. The guy just can't find a home.
Yeah, no, he can't. It's really unfortunate.
I mean, we'll say from a Red Sox fan perspective, it makes me feel a lot better about like people being angry that they let him go when nobody has wanted him for more than a year,
True.
other than the
Yeah.
Padres, but they also developed him, so it makes sense they did move on from him after a year, but still.
Right. Exactly. Um, yeah, it's unfortunate for Renfroe. However, I think, he might benefit a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
any hitter can benefit from playing at Great
citizens.
American Ballpark,
Sorry,
but
but if you're it's
just
especially known for your power.
yeah. So specifically with Renfroe, he has 19 home runs this year. Statcast has the great feature where you can, Baseball Savant has a great feature where you can see if they played every single game at this certain ballpark. This is how many home runs they would have hit based on ballpark dimensions. And Hunter Renfroe would have hit 25 home runs if he played all his games at Great American Ballpark, which, obviously the Reds don't play every game at Great American Ballpark, but it shows you that he is probably destined for more success with the Reds, or at least at home with the Reds. Because yeah, he would have 6 more home runs if he played every single game at Great American Ballpark. And he also pulls 48.7% of his batted balls, at least this year, which is an extreme amount. And that's kind of what you want to be doing. It's 325 to left field at Great American. So I think, he might be helped out. I think there were some things, especially with the Angels, at Angel Stadium. I think they have a pretty deep left field, albeit a short wall, but a deep left field. And there might have been some fly balls that just hung up and didn't go far enough at Angel Stadium that are probably going to sneak out at Great American. So I guess there is that.
Yeah. Another thing I think is that Hunter Renfroe will probably get more time as a DH in Cincinnati than he did in LA. He was below replacement level this year with the Angels. At least he was on Baseball Reference, and I'm sure he was on Fangraphs as well. But we couldn't really play a lot of DH in Anaheim because that was kind of reserved for Shohei Ohtani. And it kind of goes without saying that if he's DHing, no one else is, because they need to have him there as much as possible in the lineup. And I still think he's still going to play a little more outfield than DHing overall in Cincinnati, but his fielding value isn't good. I mean, to put it quite simply, I think we saw it perfectly the year that he was in Boston. He has a great arm. He can throw a lot of guys out, but he's not going to make a lot of plays that a lot of better infielders would make. Side note, he actually has 1.2 F4, but minus 0.1 B WAR. Which is
Yeah, that's
pretty
interesting.
interesting. I'll have to look into that one, but yeah, he has very big discrepancies on both websites this year.
Yeah, interesting.
Maybe it was wins above average that I was looking at. Nope, it was wins above replacement.
But Daniel, did you see when Hunter Renfroe on opening night, he went back and he took that bad route, but he went back and he caught it like with his back
I do
turned.
remember that. Yeah.
But so how can he be a bad defense if that's the case, if he did that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think these numbers are lying. I think these numbers must be lying. Yeah, I mean arm value is 68th percentile, arm strength 92nd percentile, and then his OAA is 18th percentile, and his fielding run value overall is in the 30th. So, yeah, I mean Hunter Renfroe, he doesn't play the best defense in the outfield, to put it quite simply, but
Right.
he can throw guys out.
He can throw guys out, especially at GABP.
And
He's gonna
it would be, and not only that, but and why would you play him in the outfield when the other guy that the Reds just picked off of waivers was Harrison Bader?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I mean, yeah, their projected outfield would be what, Bader in center. Would they have Will Benson out there? I've
They have
clicked
Will
off the
Benson,
roster.
TJ Friedel out there. They have, yeah. Well, currently Fangraphs has Nick Martini as their right fielder.
There's also Stuart Fairchild if they want to put him out there.
Nick
I
Senzel.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Renfroe is like, is going to get more playing time than like Stuart Fairchild was, because I noticed that he had a decent amount of plate appearances. Yeah, decent amount of plate appearances.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, I imagine Renfroe is he's going to be an everyday player. It just is a matter of whether it's going to be at DH or probably right field, I'd imagine.
Side note, Bader and Renfroe are actually both in the same percentile for arm strength. So, if you're picking between the two, one of them goes to the outfield, one DHs. Like Renfroe doesn't even really have the arm strength over Bader because they're pretty similar.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah,
So,
so yeah, you obviously go with the Gold Glover there.
yeah. I
Harrison
mean, I
Bader.
think it's a solid move for the Reds offensively. You know, yeah. As long as you can have Renfroe at DH, I think he's going to have more just inherent value in the fact that he's not in the field.
Yeah, and I like this for the Reds. I think the Reds have played things pretty nicely as it stands right now. I think they're a game and a half out of the playoffs or something like that.
Sounds
But
about
I think
right.
they've played it nicely because, at the deadline, I think there was a lot of pressure on certain teams who may have been arriving early to make moves and maybe sacrifice their farm system a little bit. Reds didn't do that, like many teams did not do, like the Red Sox, Giants, what have yous. They didn't go out and get pieces, but the Reds took a good opportunity to get some guys for free. Like these guys cost nothing, only a tiny bit of salary. So good on them for adding to this and adding to what could be a postseason run, if they get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Like
hate what they did.
no prospect capital was cost here, not even your number 30 prospect.
Mhm.
It works out. It works out for the Reds.
Yeah. So now on to the Angels, who are, on the receiving or on the giving end, I guess, of all of this. They are below the luxury tax. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
they're
think they got like $1 million under right now.
yeah, there we go. There we go. So that compensation pick is going to be a little lower for
Yep.
Shohei Ohtani potentially if they don't get
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, they get the 32nd pick, not the 36th pick.
yeah, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are here as like the noted Angels optimist.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest. I know that it looks obviously their deadline looks like oh, it not even looks like their deadline is one of the worst that any team has had in recent memory. Like I can't think of a worse deadline in terms of overall results that we have seen from a team really ever. Because yeah, you'll have teams that rebuild and don't really end up getting anything of value in return, but the Angels uh had the option to get like probably the largest haul for a rental that the game has ever seen or go for it one last time, and they obviously decided to go for it one last time. And yeah, maybe the trading Edgar Caro for Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez was too much. It absolutely was. Even at the time it absolutely was, but at that point, it's hey, they have Ohapi as the longtime catcher ideally. They don't need to worry about a second good catching prospect right now. um and to be completely honest, I still appreciate that they went for it. I mean, when you look at it overall, let's be honest, maybe Lucas Giolito wasn't the guy that he was in 20 and 21, and maybe they paid, maybe in terms of prospect value, they traded for what appeared to be, 2020 to 21 Lucas Giolito while actually trading for 2023 guy, but I don't think anyone expected him to be that bad, right? I mean, if I was thinking worst case scenario, he might have like a high fours, low fives ERA. And in the best case scenario, he has like a low threes ERA. Maybe he has like a CC Sabathia run and not minus the innings. Um, Reynaldo Lopez looked like a good addition because the team desperately needed bullpen help. And he kind of became the most valuable member of that bullpen at the trade. And then, Renfroe, or not Renfroe, he was a midseason acquisition. Grichuk, Crone, Moustakis. I wasn't expecting them to be like, the world beating acquisitions, but they were all pretty just terrible for the Angels. When you look into the numbers, Mike Moustakis had a 677 OPS or has a 677 OPS with them right now. Randall Grichuk had a 50 OPS plus. Eduardo Escobar had a 57 OPS plus. Um, what else? Who else was acquired at that deadline? CJ Crone is on the IL, but before he did that, he had a 54 OPS plus. Like nobody could have predicted it would be this bad for all of these guys. And to be completely honest, I think the person that should least be blamed is Perry Manassian. You know, I've kind of been a Perry defender since day one. I still believe that he's a very good GM. But you know, Artie Moreno holds him back. I think Artie pushed him to make these moves when maybe Perry would have seen the more correct situation as trading Shohei Ohtani. And ultimately, I think the players failed more than anything. And I think that's been a lot of the theme for, you know, this entire time. You know, going back to Anthony Rendon when he signed here. You know, yes, that contract hasn't worked out, and maybe people could have projected it couldn't have worked out, but none of us predicted it would be this bad. Nobody could have seriously thought he's going to play 50 games a year and have like a below average OPS plus every single year. No one could have looked at, you know, all of the trade acquisitions and said maybe they're bad with like a 90 OPS plus, but not a 50, right? Across the board, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s in the OPS plus category. The pitching just hasn't developed this year the way that it should have. Tyler Anderson is a perfect example. They brought him in on a contract that Chris, you and I thought was extremely team friendly. And he has a 5.58 ERA this year. His walks are up, which was like the entire reason he was good last year. His home runs are way up. Patrick Sandoval has been all right, but still not what we hoped he would be. Reed Detmers has a 5 ERA this year. You know, it's the players other than Trout and Ohtani that have failed, and it's Artie Moreno that has failed. And I still like that they went for it. And it just didn't work out.
Right. I definitely agree that it's not really on Perry Manassian, the GM, because everything about the direction of this falls like it was the actions of the owner, it was the opinions and the desires of the owner, Artie Moreno, to you know, buy at the deadline and then, you know, release all these guys and put all these guys on waivers to get under the luxury tax, because, you know, Manassian doesn't care about the luxury tax, or GMs generally don't really care about the luxury tax. It's the owner, because they're paying, you know, the extra and whatnot. But it was Moreno going on record saying he didn't want to be the owner to trade Shohei Ohtani. That was not Perry Manassian. I'm sure Perry Manassian, if he was an owner or, you know, had full control, would have had his own opinions. And, you know, he, in the case of buying, like, yeah, he kind of had to get a high profile guy like Lucas Giolito, and also, you know, the supplemental pieces like Lopez, Grichuk, and CJ Crone. So yeah, I can't really put too much blame on the GM. But yeah, the owner, in the decision to buy, I said it was an extreme risk. At the time, I didn't slam it completely. But yeah, it's looking really bad right now. And in my opinion, it looked bad at the time not to trade Ohtani. The day they traded for Lucas Giolito, their playoff odds were 16.7%. Their odds to make the playoffs were basically 1 out of 6. And they were 4 games out of the playoffs at that point. So yeah, trading off potential future pieces for what I said was an overpriced starter, what ended up being an overpriced starter, it didn't work out. But yeah, it's a lot on the players for sure. Like, the fact that they're 11 games out of the playoffs right now, like, that was never supposed to happen. That's not even on ownership that they're 11 games out of the playoffs right now. They performed absolutely horribly. But
yeah, they have the worst record in the AL in August, right?
Yeah, I think they have the worst record in the AL since the trade deadline, and the Mariners, who sold, have the best record.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So it's like, you know, that's a side tangent. I don't want to hear about the psychology of a clubhouse and how they react to certain trade deadlines, because this trade deadline puts an end to that conversation, in my opinion.
There should never have been a start to that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as far as the decision, like, yeah, it's kind of a blown opportunity, to be honest, for Artie Moreno to potentially, like, because they're going into rebuild mode after this. I have to imagine you can't, like, there's just it's a it's kind of barren,
Like at the All-Star break, maybe there was some hope that like Shohei could have been re-signing with the Angels if they, if they found a way to at least even get close to the playoffs. And like, with all the injuries and underperformance this year, it's like, hey, we're this close. All that went out the window in August. Like he is not coming back, especially after the UCL injury. And everyone coming out and saying like, yeah, he was the one that declined to do the imaging on his arm. And maybe he did. Maybe that's true, but he's gonna look at that and be like, all right, you guys are throwing me under the bus. See ya.
Right, right. Yeah. And this isn't a winning team. This isn't like, Trout is not the same right now. It doesn't hold the same value, isn't going to win you as many games as he did in 2019 and before that. So yeah, like this, it looks like, not trading Ohtani at the deadline, especially looks like a blown opportunity now, but I also thought it was kind of a blown opportunity at the time, because yeah, like I thought, them making the playoffs was unlikely. If the playoff odds showed it was unlikely. It was a 1 out of 6 chance they were going to make the playoffs. And at the end of August, it's definitely proven that, it wasn't going to happen. Like it wasn't inevitable that it wasn't going to happen, but based on team performance, yeah, it's not going to happen. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm wondering what this offseason looks like for the Angels. They can't really trade anyone away. They might just lose Ohtani
Yeah.
and then just be battling the A's for last place.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it's going to be. Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, if you're going to trade anyone, there are some small pieces they can trade, but nothing of major value. Yeah, you can't trade Shohei. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and I think if they ended up trading Shohei at the deadline, obviously that idea seems way better now than it did, at the All-Star break and when it was being discussed. But
but
if they
also like, yeah, if they didn't trade Shohei, we're gonna be talking about like, man, they were 3.5 games out. What if they did it?
um yeah, I
Like
don't
we
know.
are going to
It just
have that hindsight conversation, unless of course they magically did it without Shohei,
true. True,
which
that is the case. But like, if they ended up trading Shohei, they could have made this rebuild a little faster by getting some pieces that would be coming up in the next couple years, and maybe they could make something out of that, and rely on, less ownership and GM to build up the system. But now it's going to be a slower process, that's for sure. And yeah, this is the worst case scenario for the Angels.
when you go
No playoffs,
back,
no Ohtani.
yeah, when you go back a year, there was that conversation where Artie Moreno was going to sell the Angels, and then he changed his mind before the season. That was honestly when I think a lot of people knew like, okay, this is bad. This is really, really bad if they don't make it this year, because I mean Artie Moreno is, of the big market owners, I think he's comfortably the worst one. I mean, I don't think that's even a competition, right? When you think of all the bad owners in Major League Baseball, you think of the Guardians, you think of the Pirates, you think of the Reds, you think of the Rockies, you think of the Rays, you think of, several teams that are small market, teams that you don't expect a lot out of year in and year out. The Angels, with a budget that is nearing the luxury tax, Arnie Moreno is the worst of those owners. You look at the teams that are usually near the luxury tax. It's, the Red Sox, the Yankees. There's, the Dodgers, obviously, right? The Braves, like
Mets.
the Mets, yeah. And I know a lot of people don't like, John Henry or Hal Steinbrenner, but those aren't bottom 10 owners in baseball, right? I mean, I'm a Red Sox fan, and I'd much rather have John Henry than, John Angelos, or, the Dolan family, or Dick Monfort, or Stuart Sternberg.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Artie Moreno, I think, is a bottom 10 owner in baseball, with a big budget, which is very hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very hard to do. Yeah, just because it's a lot of it falls on him, and just in general, you can't have, but when you have a high budget, I don't know how problems can still fall on you, the owner, but it still happens to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything more on these waiver claims?
No, I think that was kind of it.
All right. Well, so yeah, that's the end of the Angels as we know it at the moment. We'll see
Yeah.
how their offseason goes. You know, they tried, they went for it, but it did not end up working out. All right, so now there's been a topic of conversation for the past couple weeks that has been, it's been talked about a lot of different, by a lot of different people. It's a hot topic because of, there's a lot of different angles to look at this race, but talking about the NL MVP race, Mookie Betts has been on the best like 50 game stretch of his life, and it just keeps growing, and you just like every game he's hitting a home run or getting like 3 hits or more. It's pretty unbelievable what he's been doing. Ronald Acuna Jr., we talked about, it was having an amazing season and continues to have an amazing season. He's just not flying as high right now as Mookie Betts. What are your thoughts on the National League MVP race right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been the most fun MVP race between two individuals that we've had since 2019, which was obviously the Cody Bellinger versus Christian Yelich an MVP race. And yeah, Mookie versus Acuna, I think there's very good reason for both of them to win. At this very moment, as we're recording on September 1st, I think Mookie Betts has the edge. But Acuna, he just became the first player in Major League Baseball history to put up a 30-60 season with 30 home runs and 60 stolen bases. I know a lot of people love to point to the bigger bases and the pickoff rule as like the only reason why he did it, but I'd say let's just enjoy the fact that it happened. But Mookie Betts has been on an otherworldly tear, probably better than any tear that he ever went on with the Red Sox. From June 28th until August 31st, which was yesterday, he hit 411 with a 500 OBP, a 797 slugging, and an OPS near 1300 for a 52 game stretch. That is near impossible for that to happen, to say the very least. But yeah, he's been absolutely ridiculous. He hit 2 home runs last night. Acuna hit his one to break the 30 home run mark for himself. And yeah, I think a lot of this MVP race is going to come down to the voters, obviously. I mean, I think it's very subjectively who's voting, what they believe in. I know that sounds very basic, but there might be a lot of voters that see value in simply the fact that, Acuna set his own club, regardless of if Mookie has better numbers, and there's going to be people that see that Mookie might have better numbers. So it's going to be a very exciting race. I think Mookie does have the edge right now, but it's very much not a done deal.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, for this race, I'm prepared for a lot of like I agree with whatever person they're picking, but their take on it is bad. Like I saw that with with the Judge Ohtani with the Judge and Ohtani debate last year for American League MVP. Like I just saw arguments for both sides that were horrible, even though I was on like one side of the spectrum with thinking Judge was more valuable. But they were referencing like team record and stuff, and I was like, oh my God, like just look at
it's funny. It's funny team records on both sides, because it's like, well, look how bad the Yankees would be without Judge, and then alternatively, well, look how bad the Angels are with Shohei Ohtani. And it's just very at least we don't have to deal with that with this one, because both teams are very good, and also there are other good players on both teams.
Exactly.
Like the third and fourth candidates for the MVP are probably both Dodgers and Braves players.
Right, with
Freeman and Olsen.
And Matt Olson.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny considering that Olsen was Freeman's replacement. But yeah, like, so it's a pretty nuanced argument when you look at the statistics. Looking at it, Mookie Betts has a 177 weighted runs created plus. Ronald Acuna Jr. is at 167. Mookie Betts 7.8 F4, Ronald Acuna Jr. 6.7. I don't think that they are, like, based on just my evaluation of how I evaluate players, I think that 1.1 win above replacement difference is like misleading to me. And I think a lot of that has to do with the base running metrics. But despite Ronald Acuna Jr. having 52 more stolen bases than Mookie Betts this year, he's only worth 3 more base running runs than Mookie Betts this year. And there are a lot of things that go into BSR that I think people don't think about. Part of it is being thrown out on the bases. Part of it is caught stealings. Part of it is not grounding into double plays. Part of it is extra bases taken, so going first to third on a single, second to home on a single, first to home on a double, all that stuff. So there's a lot, obviously, you know, if you're a baseball fan, you know, there's a lot more components to base running than stolen bases. But with the gap of stolen bases, I think there should be a bigger gap in base running runs. To break down the base running differences, I believe I have their both their individual numbers pulled up by now. I lost Mookie Betts's, but I think I remember the numbers. But Ronald Acuna Jr. obviously 62 stolen bases versus Mookie Betts's 10, 11 caught stealings versus Mookie Betts's 3. So Ronald Acuna Jr. also has a higher stolen base success rate, despite all the more attempts that he has. But Ronald Acuna Jr. is grounded into 12 double plays. Mookie Betts has grounded into 5 double plays. Ronald Acuna Jr. has been thrown out on the bases 8 times. Mookie Betts has been thrown out on the bases 4 times. But also Ronald Acuna Jr. has a 54% extra base taken rate, while Mookie Betts is at 45%. So Ronald Acuna Jr. also takes more bases on base hits or doubles and all that, and scores from home more, or scores from first more on a double, and scores from second more on a single. And Acuna also has 52 more stolen bases. So I think wins above replacement is a little bit misleading considering what the base running metrics show. And I'm probably missing something on the base running metrics, but just based off of all those things, I still think that Acuna's base running value is not being properly evaluated by the numbers.
You think that he should be lower?
No, I think Acuna's should be higher. I think the gap should be higher.
Okay. Because it's 5.6 to 2.6 from what I'm seeing.
Right. And I think Acuna's more like 5 to 8 run, like his base running value should be like 5 to 8 more runs as opposed to just 3 more runs. I think that gap should be higher.
Gotcha. I mean, if we're talking about the difference in F4 between Betts and Acuna, you know, the real difference maker is defense. Mookie has him beat pretty solidly on defense, and it shows it on StatCast. It shows it on FanGraphs. Pretty much everywhere you look, Betts has the advantage. Acuna has -7 outs above average this year. Mookie has -1. Mookie has 43rd percentile fielding value. Acuna is 23rd percentile. So I mean, I think Betts is just like being more consistent with the plays, taking better routes, and that's a large part of the reason why he's above him in defense.
Yeah. Betts has definitely been the better defender, but it's also not the case of, you know, Gold Glover versus, you know, like a Schwarber guy. That's for sure. Not that
Moogie's defense has been like around league average, and yeah,
Acuna's is like, as you mentioned, 23rd percentile. So yeah, I think it's closer than the wins above replacement would indicate. But yeah, I mean, Betts has the advantage in defense. He has the advantage in hitting. He's been hitting better. His weighted runs created plus is 10 points higher. But Acuna has some great base running. And if it would be hard for me to break it down right now. I don't know. I think I'd just go Betts now, just based on the momentum and how he's been able to like him and Freeman have basically taken the NL West
Mhm.
on their own. Like that seems like
Yeah.
the case. But Acuna was kind of doing that at the beginning of the year with the NL East and doing that. But yeah, I think it's razor close right now, and I think that's a lot of the reason people are debating this. Here's what I will say is this goes back to a thing I was saying at the All-Star break with like the Luis Ariz hitting 400 thing, like the potential of that. Something can be, a guy can do a thing that no one else is doing, but still not be the most valuable. So I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't want him being the only guy to get this, certain marker, a 30-60 season, to be the reason he gets MVP. Because like, yeah, like the Nolan Ryan had the strikeout record, single season strikeout record. He didn't win Cy Young because he was not the best pitcher.
Right.
And, Ricky Henderson got the stolen base record in 1982. He did not win MVP because he was not the most valuable player. He was not the best player. Also, there's like, there's two 2080 seasons in baseball history. They both happened in 1986. They were Ricky Henderson and Eric Davis. Davis finished 12th in MVP. Henderson did not get MVP votes. Like they made their own clubs, but they did not like, because the game adjusted. Like there were 80 stolen base seasons were more common at the time. Like this is a newer thing, and it's really cool that Acuna did this, but it doesn't mean he's most valuable. But I'm also
Not only that, but
considering him heavily because of his like 992 OPS.
yeah, and also just the fact that stolen bases are up, I think, are going to make it a lot less cool that Acuna stole 60 bases. Because I mean, he was not. I mean, he does lead the majors in stolen bases, I believe, but stolen bases are a lot more common now. That's just what it is.
Right. And we'll probably
Right.
see I don't think we'll see another 30-60 season this year, but it'll probably happen next year or 2 years from now.
Yeah.
With the rule changes and all that. And yeah, I don't know if a guy who got a 40-40 season has won an MVP either.
Yeah, no, I don't think they have.
Like
Canseco didn't win one. Alfonso Soriano didn't win it. I don't think A-Rod won it in that year.
Bonds didn't win it that year.
And Bonds didn't win it. Well, yeah, I mean, Bonds should have won like 11 MVPs.
He should have. Yeah, he should have won it that year, but he didn't.
There are so many years where he should have won it, but he didn't. It's not even funny. The biggest one was 1991,
That's true. Yeah.
the Terry Pendleton year.
Yep. Never forget. But yeah, that's my tangent with Acuna is like, just because he did something that no one else has done before doesn't mean he's also the most valuable. Because yeah, home runs and stolen bases, they're valuable stats, but they're not the most valuable. Yeah. And Betts has a higher OPS by like 40 points, and he also has better defense. So that's why people are arguing for Betts. If you were wondering that.
Just by the
way,
I think
Barry
it's really
Bonds,
close. Barry Bonds led the National League in B-WAR 11 times, and he won only 7 MVPs.
Yeah.
It should have been more than that.
Yeah, we did the history episode, and I think we were openly mocking the MVP voting, like in the when voters got like voter fatigue in like the mid 90s, and he was doing amazing in like 95 and 96, 97,
Yep.
and not getting any recognition for it.
Yep.
I think he had more WAR than both McGwire and Sosa in 98.
Oh, he absolutely did. He led the league that year and finished 8th in the MVP voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't really consider defensive value at the time.
No.
Yeah. Any more thoughts on the MVP voting?
On the MVP voting? Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a fun race. Like I said, I think Mookie has it right now. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's still a month ago, and I think this could change on any given day, really.
Yeah, I believe it can. Also, shout out to Freddie Freeman. He's
Yeah,
he's very much in the race.
Freddie Freeman's like the in any other year guy, which we love to say every single year.
That's true, but I think there's like those three are all on pace for like 8 wins above replacement, which I don't know, like the last time that's happened.
I'll have to check.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy to have 3 guys that might have 8 wins above replacement. But also Freeman, by the way, I looked at his base running stats. they're pretty crazy. He's 17 for 18 on stolen bases, and he's only been thrown out on the bases once this
Wow.
year. So that's why his BSR is almost as high as Acuna's, which is crazy to think
Very
about.
fun. Very fun.
All right. Well, that shall do it for the topics. Now we will get into the part that we've most prepared for with our players to highlight, starting with the good. It is time for our Friday, September 1st, 2023 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
He is getting a
How about that?
So for my how about that, I do have a content warning here, small sample size. I know, I'm doing it. But I need to talk about Davis Schneider from the Toronto Blue Jays because, oh my goodness, has he been crushing the baseball. He has played 14 career games, and in those 14 career games, he is slashing 426, 526, 894 for a 1420 OPS and a 280 weighted runs created plus. Among the 391 hitters to have at least 20 plate appearances since his debut, Davis Schneider ranks 5th in batting average, 2nd in OBP, and he leads in slugging percentage, OPS, and weighted runs created plus. And that is in 57 plate appearances, so that's not a cherry-picked list of 391. So far in his major league career, do you want to guess his ground ball rate, Chris?
Well, it's got to be very low, like 25%.
It is 18.8%.
Wow.
In the 14 games that he's played. That is the lowest among the 322 qualified hitters with at least 25 batted balls since the day he debuted. Additionally, he has a 28% fly ball rate with a 99 mile per hour average exit velocity on fly balls, and his 37.5% line drive rate ranks the 7th highest. 56.3% of his batted balls have been pulled in general. Just 56% of his batted balls have been pulled, excuse me. That ranks the 13th highest. It's the 13th highest rate of batted balls that were pulled. And on those pulled batted balls, he is hitting 722 and slugging 1889. That average ranks 2nd highest, and that average ranks 1st. And additionally, 40.6% of his batted balls have been pulled, fly balls, and line drives. 40% of his batted balls. That is the highest rate in the majors. He has 13 such batted balls, and he is 13 for 13 with a 26-15 slugging percentage. And lastly, he has a sweet spot rate of 56.3 in his major league career. That is the highest in the majors, once again, among the 322 hitters with at least 25 batted balls. So Davis Schneider has come up and made an immediate difference for the Blue Jays, a team that has just been needing to take off. And Davis Schneider has very surprisingly been leading that charge.
Yeah, Davis Schneider.
How about that?
He debuted against the Red Sox. I'm pretty sure hit a home run in his first game.
Yep.
And yeah, he's just been firing on all cylinders. Just the antidote the Blue Jays needed, that they didn't know they needed, I guess.
Yeah.
Shout out to Davis Schneider. My how about that is a victory lap. I'm looking at
we haven't done one of those in a while, either of us.
Yeah, right, exactly. Mine is a victory lap. Mine is my 2023 Twins player to watch. I'm talking about Max Kepler. In his last 22 games, and by the way, Max Kepler, he kind of developed a higher profile back in like 2018, 2019. He was doing well. He had 36 home runs in 2019.
He was getting compared to Aaron Judge.
Yeah, he was compared to Aaron Judge unjustifiably, but he did have that one graphic that was shown. But as far as Kepler goes, he's kind of struggled since the juice balls went away after 2019, but he's coming right back. I think the shift helped, the lack of shifts is helping him out a little bit. But in his last 22 games, Max Kepler is hitting 329 with a 1063 OPS. Out of 169 qualifiers in this span, his slugging, OPS, and weighted runs created plus all rank 10th. Out of 173 hitters with 300 plus pitches seen, his expected batting average ranks 6th. expected slugging ranks 5th, and his expected WOBA ranks 6th. So in some respects, his expected numbers are actually better than his actual numbers, and those actual numbers are spectacular. 1063 OPS, top 10 hitter in baseball, and his average exit velocity has gone from 91.5 miles per hour before the span to 94.2 miles per hour in the span. And out of 173 hitters, Max Kepler's average exit velocity ranks 5th. And his ground ball rate has, along with hitting the ball harder, he is hitting the ball in more optimal places in the launch angle spectrum. His ground ball rate has gone from 40% to 31%. Out of 179 hitters with 50 plus batted balls in the span, his ground ball rate is 19th lowest, and his pop-up rate has also decreased from 6% to 3%. Normally, a guy with a low ground ball rate is going to, increase his pop-up rate a little bit, but he's grounding balls at only a 31% rate, which is 14% below average, and only popping up at a 3% rate, which is about 4% below average. It's less than half of the league average. And that has bumped up his, what you want to do, which is line drives and fly balls. His line drive rate has gone from 23% before the span to 38% in the span in these last 22 games. Out of 179 hitters, Max Kepler's line drive rate ranks 2nd in baseball. Also, his sweet spot rate has gone from 34% to 48%. And out of 179 hitters, his sweet spot rate ranks 6th. Along with that, he is barreling up more balls, a lot more batted balls going for extra base hits. His barrel rate has gone from 11% before the span to 16% in this span. And out of 179 hitters, his barrel rate ranks 15th. And what he's doing best is getting those hard hit line drives. He's hitting the ball hard, and he's also hitting them in the right places. His hard hit line drive rate has gone from 12% before the span to 28% in the span. And out of 179 hitters in the span, his hard hit line drive rate ranks 2nd. So Max Kepler has been hitting the ball harder, hitting way more line drives, 38% line drive rate, 2nd best in baseball, and just getting better results because of it. And he is getting a.
How about that?
All right, so now we go from the highs to the lows, where we're talking players or subjects that have been underperforming with our Friday, September 1st, 2023 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, so for my slightly alarming, this might be an indirect talk of shame. I don't know if you put this guy or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if you did. Did you have Christian Javier as your Astros player to watch?
I did not.
You did not. All right, so it's not an indirect talk of shame, but I am talking about Christian Javier as my slightly alarming, because he's had a rough go of it over the last 2 months, really. Over his last 10 starts, Christian Javier has a 7.08 ERA and a 6.74 FIP in just 48 in the third innings pitched, which is not enough for him to qualify, even though he's made the appropriate number of starts to qualify. He simply just hasn't gone enough innings in his starts, which it's bad when that's the case. Among the 117 pitchers with at least 40 innings pitched in the span, Christian Javier has the 5th worst ERA and the highest FIP, the worst FIP in all of baseball. His strikeout rate has gone from 22.9% before the span to 18.5% in this span, and his walk rate has gone from 7.1% before the span to 11.9% in this span, which means his strikeout minus walk rate has gone from 15.8% to just 6.6% now, which is among the worst in baseball, obviously. Additionally, before the span, of course, when you think of Christian Javier and his batted ball profile, you think of pop-ups. And naturally, his pop-up rate before the span was 13%, but in the span, it is down to only 9.2%, which is still, I would say higher than the average, but when you're Christian Javier, like, only having a 9% pop-up rate isn't going to do it for you, because his fly ball rate in the span has gone from 35.9% to 42.5%, the very highest of the 135 pitchers with at least 100 batted balls. And, if you're giving up fly balls at a 42.5% rate, you're just going to give up a lot of home runs. You might have a low home run to fly ball rate, but you're still going to give up a lot of home runs, and that's exactly what Christian Javier has done. Additionally, his barrel rate his barrel rate is 10.5% in this span. That is the 7th highest among the 74 hitters with at least 100 batted balls allowed. So it's just been a really bad 2 months for Christian Javier. We kind of expected him to be one of the leaders in the Astros rotation, when Verlander had left. Obviously he's back now, but he really just hasn't cut it.
Yeah, Christian Javier.
Slightly alarming.
And great minds do think alike, and I also went with Christian Javier. Yeah, it's been rough, and yeah, I didn't really quite pick up on it until I actually looked at the numbers in the last 2 months. And yeah, in his last 11 starts, he actually has a 7.46 ERA and 6.89 FIP, and out of 102 pitchers with 50+ innings pitched in that 11 start span, his ERA and FIP are both the highest in baseball. And out of 65 pitchers with 1,000+ pitches thrown in the span, his expected slugging against is second highest, and expected WOBA against is the highest. Expected WOBA, by the way, it perfectly correlates to expected ERA. It's what makes the expected ERA statistic. So essentially, is the worst expected ERA in baseball in his last 11 starts. As you mentioned, that strikeout rate has gone down from 24% before this 11 start span to 18% in the span. Also, that walk rate has gone from 6% to 13%, which has pulled his strikeout minus walk rate from 18% to 5%. And out of 102 pitchers with 50+ innings pitched in the span, Christian Javier's walk rate is the 4th highest, and his strikeout minus walk rate is the 2nd lowest. His called strike and whiff rate has gone from 28% before the span to 24% in the span. Also, his chase rate has gone down, probably showing in that increase in walk rate. He's not really throwing it out of the zone that much more. It's just hitters are swinging less out of the zone. His chase rate has gone from 32% before the span to 26% in the span. Also, that batted ball profile has gotten worse. His sweet spot rate against has gone from 27% to 38%. And out of 96 pitchers with 150+ batted balls against in the span, his sweet spot rate against is 15th highest. You also mentioned the fly ball rate going up. It's gone from 25% before these 11 starts to 41% in these 11 starts. Out of 96 pitchers, that fly ball rate is the highest in baseball, and this has made his home runs per 9 go from 1.0 to 2.1 in this span. Out of 102 pitchers with 50+ innings pitched, Christian Javier's home runs per 9 allowed is the 7th highest. And also, Christian Javier's bread and butter was his four-seam fastball before the span in last year. It was great. It was working great for him. It's what got all the pop-ups. He is throwing that four-seamer right now 57% of the time. It's his main pitch, but hitters are slugging .591 with a .592 expected slugging against it. There are 23 other pitchers, or there's 23 pitchers in general to throw 500+ four-seamers in this span, and I have to get up to look at the statistic, and he has the highest slugging and expected slugging against that four-seamer, and this is a year after hitters slugged .326 against that four-seamer. Right now in these 11 starts, they're slugging .591 against it, which is the worst out of pitchers that throw that four-seamer that often. So yeah, Christian Javier, I was really high on him heading into the season. He ended last year amazing. He had like 1 run allowed in 32 innings to end the season or something like that. Had an amazing postseason, which was on display for everyone. And so I thought he was a great number 2 option, potentially a number 1 option in that Astros rotation, but he is walking a lot more guys. He's striking out a lot less guys. He's allowing more fly balls, more home runs, and that four-seamer, which was really effective last year, has proved to not really be effective this year, unfortunately. And yeah, from both of us, he's getting a
slightly alarming.
Yeah, no doubt on that one.
Yeah, and it sucks, especially going into the postseason. Like, you hope he fixes it up, because he was crucial to that. Yeah, he was really crucial to that rotation last year. And sort of I was campaigning for him to get that game 3 start over Lance McCullers, and I was kind of proven correctly. Like, he was way better than McCullers
Yeah,
throughout
right.
the playoffs. So yeah, that does it for players to highlight. Now we will get into a preview of the weekend ahead as all that starts today, and some of these series started yesterday. But I will be getting into the series to watch. Daniel will be getting into the day-by-day pitching matchups. One of the series to watch has the game already started. One of the games today already started. It's a 4-gamer between the Reds and Cubs at Great American Ballpark, featuring probably Hunter Renfroe and Harrison Bader, the new Reds acquisitions. Or actually, I can look at the lineups and see if they're in there. Yep, Renfroe's in there, and Bader is leading off. He's 0 for 1 right now. But the Reds and Cubs, they're facing each other. The Cubs are in the 5 seed in the National League playoff picture. The Reds currently are a game and a half out of the playoffs. And this could be really big for them. This could maybe take Cubs down a peg and prop themselves up, or the Cubs could kind of kick the Reds out of the playoff race if they do well enough. Along with that, we have Rangers Twins once again. That was a good series last time. Rangers are fighting for the playoff lives. It's kind of weird that the Twins have more playoff security than the Rangers right now, considering records, but that's baseball. And Phillies Brewers is a good matchup. Brewers are only 3 games up on the Cubs in the NL Central right now, so this is a big series for them. Phillies, they know that they're not going to get the division, but they're still trying to keep that wild card spot. They're comfortably in it though. Also, Orioles Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are fighting for a playoff spot. That is a big test with the first place Orioles coming to town. But the premier series to watch, we got a pleasure to see the first game of it last night, but it is the Braves and the Dodgers. It is probably the NLCS preview, although we've seen crazier things happen. But odds are this has the highest odds of being the NLCS. Also, high odds that there is a World Series winner in this particular series. So yeah, and just great. There's great watch value. They both have things to play for. Braves want to keep that 1 seed and potential home field advantage for when they do meet with the Dodgers in the NLCS, if they do end up doing that. So yeah, those are the series to watch. What do you got for the day-by-day pitching matchups?
Yeah, the Dodgers Braves games are must watch on all level, and it was a really good one last night. The Braves were up 7-1. They ended up winning 8-7. Dodgers made it close, but tonight, Graham Ashcraft is currently going for the Reds against the Cubs at Great American Ballpark. Jordan Wicks, who pitched very well his last time out, is going for the Cubs today. This is happening as we're recording, so you probably can't watch it after watching this. But Yuri Perez will be going for the Marlins tonight against the Nationals in Nats Park. Kodai Senga will be going for the Mets against the Mariners. That is at Citi Field. Tyler Glasnow and Cal Quantrill will be going in the 2023 wild card rematch. Cleveland versus Tampa. Twins Rangers, you will have Joe Ryan versus Max Scherzer. That's going to be at Globe Life Field. James Paxton will be going for the Red Sox against the Royals in Kansas City. Eduardo Rodriguez will be going for the Tigers against the White Sox at Guaranteed Rate Field. Carlos Rodon versus Justin Verlander will be going on in Yankees Astros. That is going to be an interesting one tonight for the Astros, I guess. You will have Mitch Keller going for the Pirates against the Cardinals. That is in St. Louis. Hyunjin Ryu is going for the Blue Jays against the Rockies at Coors Field. And you will also have Patrick Sandoval going for the Angels against the A's in the Coliseum. Tristan Beck, who pitched well his last time out, will be going for the Giants against Michael Wacha and the Padres. That is at Petco. And you'll have Max Fried and Julio Urias in Braves Dodgers. And matchup of the night comes from Phillies Brewers, like Chris mentioned. It's going to be Zach Wheeler versus Freddie Peralta.
Yep, that's a good one. Lots of strikeouts in that one, most likely.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So then on Saturday, which is tomorrow, there's not a game until 4, and none of the pitching matchups are really that intriguing. But later in the night, you will have Andrew Abbott going for the Reds against the Cubs. Tanner Houck going for the Red Sox against the Royals. You will have Luis Severino and Hunter Brown facing each other in Yankees Astros in Houston. You will have Jordan Montgomery facing the Twins for the Rangers. It's going to be obviously in Rangers ballpark. Aaron Nola will be facing the Brewers for the Phillies. Kyle Bradish will be facing the Diamondbacks for the Orioles. He's been a dominant pitcher. Yusei Kikuchi will be facing the Rockies for the Blue Jays. And then Bryce Elder will be facing the Dodgers for the Braves. Dodgers have yet to announce their starter on Saturday. But matchup of the night comes from Giants and Padres. It's Kyle Harrison versus Blake Snell.
Yeah, Kyle Harrison had an amazing home debut in which he struck out a bunch of batters, and Blake Snell, obviously a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah, I believe he struck out 10.
Yeah,
that was very fun. So then on Sunday, to finish out the weekend, Jameson Taillon and Brandon Williamson will face each other in Cubs Reds. That is a 12:05 or 12:10 start. Josiah Gray will be facing the Marlins for the Nationals. You will have Chris Sale facing the Royals for the Red Sox at Kauffman. Tarek Skubal and Michael Kopech will face each other in the Tigers and White Sox finale. Johan Oviedo will be facing his former team in the Cardinals for the Pirates. Kenta Maeda and John Gray will face each other in Twins Rangers. Kevin Gausman will be facing the Rockies for the Blue Jays. And then you will have Jack Flaherty and Zach Gallen facing each other in Orioles Diamondbacks. Alex Cobb, who almost threw a no-hitter in his last start, will be facing the Padres for the Giants. And then Michael King and our slightly alarming Christian Javier will face off on Sunday Night Baseball in Yankees Astros. And matchup of the night comes from Dodgers Braves, or matchup of the afternoon. It's going to be Charlie Morton versus Bobby Miller.
Yes, indeed. Reno. We will be seeing that with the Braves Dodgers. Yeah, that's just going to be a fun series all around. All right. Well, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, look at all the features, look at the playlist, baseball history series, guest interviews, most recently with Red Sox beat reporter Chris Cotillo. And before that, one of the main guys at Baseball Savant, Mike Petriello, where he previewed the new dashboard of Baseball Savant. So go check out those interviews on that YouTube channel with all our fun features. Also check out our social medias. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoy this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.